Hello, my fellow Ruby enthusiasts. Today is a great day because Claude announced 3.7 Sonnet. This is the long-awaited upgrade to 3.5 Sonnet, which in my opinion is still the king of coding models, especially when it comes to Ruby and Rails development. According to Claude, this is their most intelligent model to date and the first hybrid reasoning model on the market, claiming near instant responses or extended step-by-step thinking that is made visible to the user. Claude 3.7 Sonnet shows particularly strong improvements in coding and front-end web development. Along with the model, we're introducing a command line tool for agentic coding called Claude Code, which enables developers to delegate substantial engineering tasks to Claude directly from their terminal. Claude Code sounds amazing, and I can't wait to give it a try. But in this video, I'm going to put the new Claude 3.7 Sonnet model to the test. I'm going to compare it with Claude 3.5, generating an application. I was pretty excited to see that Claude 3.7 Sonnet is already available in Cursor. So I will be using Cursor's Composer in agent mode to perform this task. I've also enabled YOLO mode in Cursor, which allows the agent in Composer to run tools without asking for confirmation, such as executing commands and writing to files. This way, I can run a timer to see if 3.7 is faster than 3.5, and if so, by how much. I've already set up a new project in Rails 8 using Tailwind for CSS and Flowbyte for CSS and JavaScript components and Rails 8 authentication. I've also added an application development guide as a cursor rules file. It goes over the technologies that I'm using on the project and some basic coding guidelines. I'm so excited to see how it does that I'm going to start right out with Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And the first thing I'm going to do is ask it the question, what do you know about the project we are working on? So Claude and Cursor spent some time going through my project, looking at all the files, and came up with a pretty good summary of what this project is about. It says it's a HOA hub project. In the early stages of development, it picked out the technology stack from the rules file that I gave it, and it got that all correct. Looks like it's talking about Hotwire, Turbo, and Stimulus, which was part of my application development guide. Tailwind, Flowbyte, database is SQLite. Deployment will be with Kamal. Basically telling me the current state. Is saying that it recognizes that it has a user model that has the email and password for authentication, session management, password reset functionality, project structure is standard Rails MVC, basic views for authentication, development guides, and then it goes through that, and then it tells me what it thinks is missing. It says there's no domain-specific models beyond authentication, no root route defined yet, and the README is still the README from the default Rails template. And then it says, without me giving it any information, the project seems to be a homeowners association management application, but the specific features and functionality are yet to be implemented beyond the authentication system. Would you like me to explore any specific aspect of the project in more detail? In a minute, we're going to see what Claude 3.5 does with this, but so far, this is probably the best response that I've seen from any of the models when I ask it this same question. So I'm going to give it more or less a one-shot prompt, but we're going to build the application iteratively, starting with the models. And this is the prompt that I'm going to give it. You are a Ruby on Rails expert with a lot of experience using Rails 8, including reactive interfaces built using Hotwire, Turbo, and Stimulus. You follow the best practices for Ruby and Rails and strive for clean, maintainable code with automated test coverage on models and controllers. For this project, you'll be helping me build an HOA application. This application will facilitate communication between HOA administrators and homeowners. The high-level features of the project are, and that goes on to list some of the features of the project for the HOA administrator. I won't go into a lot of detail here, and then for the homeowners. And it says the application is already set up with Rails 8 authentication, which it already picked up, Tailwind CSS, and Flowbyte for components and layouts. I would like for you to generate and execute Rails generator commands when creating models, controllers, migrations, stimulus controllers, and anything else that Rails offers. Generated files can then be updated to meet the requirements above. I would like you to start with the models and model tests, then we can move on to the controllers and views. So without giving it specific context, I'm going to go ahead and paste this entire prompt into Composer and submit it, and we're going to see how it does. Looks like it's adding our roles, which is great to see. It's still having me run these commands, which I'm surprised because I put it in YOLO mode, but we'll go ahead and accept that. It's installing action text, which I requested so that homeowner administrators can post rich text to the feed. And now it's doing a model generator, which is what I asked it to do. So it's going to run that. Going in here and implementing our models. Creating the relationships here, it looks like, with the user. Now we're generating a comment model. Now it's running our migrations. And now it's updating our tests for the models, which I asked it to do. So that's great. The agent in Cursor has a limit of 25 tool calls without getting permission to continue. So all I have to do is give it permission and it will continue generating the generator scripts and executing them. Now it's running the tests and it looks like it's got 5 failures, 80 total assertions. And now it's going to go through and see if it can fix the tests. And it looks like the tests passed this time around. And now it's already moving on to the controllers, which I think is great. Let's do it. It's going to do the users controller to manage users. Doing some role checking. Looks like in the application controller. Once again, we bumped up against the 25 tool call limit, and so we have to tell it to continue manually. These warnings for stimulus controllers not being defined. This is just a bug with the linter that I need to look into and get fixed. It causes these models some grief sometimes, even though in the rules file I told it to ignore these, so hopefully it does and doesn't try to fix them. It's going through and creating all of our views. And I can see in here that it's getting the tailwind stuff correct. I'm assuming it's also using Flowbyte. That's hard to tell until we actually see it. Creating a shared views folder, which is kind of cool for shared components. Pretty excited to see if it uses Hotwire correctly, turbo frames or turbo streams, which I did ask it to do in the rules file. It seems like it has stalled here. It's telling me it created a checkpoint. Let's see if we can get it to continue. Hopefully it hasn't lost its way. It's generated a lot of code. I'm not sure how far along it is. See, it's trying to fix that linting error, so I'm going to tell it not to do that. It tells me it understood, and it's just continuing. Well, while it's working over here, I'm going to go ahead and open this up and take a look at a few things. So it looks like we have Yep, a few models here. Action item, comment, post. Updated the user. Doesn't look like we have any concerns yet. Let's take a look at controllers. Now we've got a few controllers that have been added in here. Users, posts, comments, our admin controller for adminning users, and action items controller. And I'm assuming we have views corresponding to each of those, and it looks like we do. Looks like it's in the middle of generating those now. It'll be interesting to see what this application looks like. I didn't give it any design guidelines other than to tell it that I want it to be modern and simple. So far, it doesn't seem to be any faster than 3.5, but we'll see when I do the 3.5 version and put a timer on them. Oh, cool. I was going to go create seeds for an admin and a homeowner, but it looks like it's creating the seeds for me. Nice. That'll make my life a little easier. We have admin and homeowner1 at example.com. Okay, it's ready to run the application, but I have it running already, so I'm going to stop it here. Then I'm going to tell it to run it with a different command. I want it to run within Composer because I want to see if it picks up any errors, if there are any. Kind of interesting. It opens the terminal up here in the main editor window. And it's telling me it's now running. The command usually starts the rail server along with any additional processes, tailwind. Okay, now it's telling me it's giving me all the instructions to log into the application and test it out. All right, let's jump over to the browser and see what we have. Okay, this looks like our feed. It looks like the feed is not behind authentication, which may or may not be okay, I guess, depending on the kind of information that's in the feed. But let's try logging in and see what we have. Okay, great. So it just lands right on the feed. The only link I see here is the home link. Let's see if we can get to the posts. Okay, yeah, so this is the new post. I can see if I can add a new post. And then let's save that as a draft. Looks good. Let's go back home. Looks like it's not showing up, probably because we saved it as a draft. Let's see if I can go find that. We'll try publishing it. And yep, sure enough, now we have a published post. See if we have our users. We do. Looks like we have our users complete with their role. And some actions. Ability to edit. Ability to change a password, it looks like here. So yeah, it looks like we have everything we need for users, create a new user. And interestingly enough, we do have our navigation on most of these screens, just not on the home page. So I'm assuming admin. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have an admin dashboard. Looks like that just gives us some analytics, manage users, view our all action items. And then we have our most recent posts and action items here. That looks really good. Manage users, all action items. So it looks like this is our manage action items. And we can edit. Oh, cool. We can even add comments, it looks like. Create a new action item. Yeah, it looks pretty complete. I'm going to quickly try logging out and logging in as the homeowner. And yeah, it looks like they have the same view. Let's see if they can view action items. No, it looks like they can't view the action items. They should be able to view their own action items. But once again, I think this is fairly complete. I think this really honestly is only a couple of prompts away from being 100% complete and functional, which is pretty impressive for a one-shot prompt like this. So back in Composer, starting with a clean project, again, just with Tailwind, Flowbyte, and Rails 8 authentication setup. nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start a new composer context here. And I'm going to switch it over to Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the latest version of that. Make sure it's in agent mode, which it is. And then I'm going to ask it the same question about the project. And it looks like it's following a similar process by looking through the files and checking out the README. And it did pick up the rule that I put in here, and it knows the technologies we're using. And it's just pretty much echoing back the rules that I put in place in a little bit more detail, actually, but still basically everything it pulled from that rules file. And then it's also looking through the project. Looks like it picked up the proc file that is going to start the tailwind or run the tailwind watch. And then Kamal, so it knows we're going to be deploying with Kamal. So I would say this isn't quite as impressive as the 3.7 version, but it's still pretty impressive. It got everything pretty much correct. So once again, without giving it any additional context, I'm going to go ahead and paste the exact same prompt in here, and we're going to see how it does. Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Interestingly enough, it seems to be running these commands without me telling it to run them with 3.5, so I don't know why that would be. Maybe they don't have that set up correctly within Composer for 3.7 yet. YOLO mode. I'm guessing that's what it is because it certainly is running them now. So now, once again, it's created all the models, and now it's writing some model tests. So it's asking me if it wants me to try running the tests first or move on to the controllers. I'm going to have it run the tests and then move on to the controllers. Yeah, see, this time it's just running these commands without me having to approve, which is what YOLO mode is supposed to do. I imagine that they'll get that updated and working with 3.7. It's running into some migration errors and then fixing them here, which is good. I just have a habit of clicking the accept, even though I probably don't have to. It says it has 36 errors, which is probably something base level like authentication. It's creating action text. Now it says it's fixed all of the models and they have comprehensive coverage. Do we want to move on to the controllers? With 3.7, I didn't have to tell it to move on the controllers. It just jumped right in and started generating controllers and views. Looks like it's doing the same thing to the routes file that 3.7 did. It originally created the routes as single line per route, and then now it's using the resource syntax. Looks like it's done generating the controllers, and now it's working on the controller tests. So while it's doing that, I'm going to come over here and once again, like I did with 3.7, just scan the files and see what we have. Action items, comments, posts. So it looks like it's using the same model architecture, which I didn't tell it how to derive the models. It came up with that on its own. But it looks like 3.5 and 3.7 came up with the same models, which doesn't surprise me. And I mean, at a glance, it looks like we have the correct views. Models seem to be correct. Looks like it's added some, nope, didn't add any helpers. It just generated the helpers. Let's look at controllers. Controllers seem to be the same. That looks good. Now it looks like it's iterating on the tests, running the tests, and then fixing any errors. Doesn't look like it's created any seeds yet. We'll see if it does that when it's done so that I can test it. If not, I'll ask it to create seeds. Yeah, once again, I think it's mixing up Rails 8 authentication with devise. So it needs to go in and fix some of that. Getting closer, it looks like we only have 2 failures now instead of 35 errors. I worry that it's going to get stuck in a loop. Sometimes when it gets in this situation, it keeps retrying the same things over and over. If that's the case, if it does get stuck in a loop, I think I'll just have see what Claude 3.7 can do with it. Oh, no, it looks like it is successful. So I'm going to ask it to create the 2 seeds. So rather than just using password as a password, it's using password123, and we have admin at HOA Hub and homeowner at HOA Hub. So let's go ahead and get this started. And interesting, we did not get a implementation of the feed. Let's see if we have action items, and we don't. It's kind of interesting because we do have an action items index, but oh, yep, it's not implemented. Let's see which of these are not. Okay, it looks like none of the views have been implemented, so we need to get it to generate the views. Okay, yeah, it looked like it put flash messages, so our flash messages in the shared folder. I think that's what Claude 3.7 did too. So it seemed to stop, and it still did not update or did not implement the views for the posts or the action items. Looks like we're going to need to have it create the views for comments as well. All right, let's come back into the browser, refresh the page. This is our action items page, which looks like things are off here. I believe this should be within this card or container. But let's go back to the root. Okay, yeah, so it's off here, obviously, the layout. But yeah, it didn't create any seeds for the posts or anything either, like the 3.7 version did. Admin user. Interestingly, I can't click this, even though I believe maybe this is saying who's logged in. I don't know how to administrate users here, though. It looks like it just has the posts. and the action items. So let's try creating a new post real quick. It did get this part right. Looks like we have our editor here, our tricks editor. Create a post, and we do have a post. We can go back to post. We can edit it, it looks like. We can delete our post, I'm sure. Yep, that works fine. Action items, new action item. Status, we can say it's in progress. Assign to admin user, create action item. And so now we have our action item here. It shows the status up here. Let's see what it looks like in a list. Okay, yeah, so it shows the status, who it was created by, just a quick summary when it was created, and allows us to edit and delete it. So other than the layout here, I think it's done a fairly good job, but clearly 3.7 did a better job than 3.5. The overall user interface looks better, and it just rolled right through all of the generation. I didn't have to stop as often and prompt it. So this is pretty exciting because, as you all know, 3.5 is definitely my favorite model, and I think it's the best model for generating Ruby on Rails code. But it looks like 3.7 has taken that to the next level, so I'm really excited to use it. That is it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.